إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. In continuing Tafseer of suratun-nisaa, وصلنا إلى الآية 36, the 36th ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنبِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ وَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ مَنْ كَانَ مُخْتَالًا فَخُورًا. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. The greatest وَأَعْظَمُ حَقٍّ عَلَى الْعِبَادِ لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى, the greatest right Allah has over mankind, أَنْ يَعْبُدُوهُ وَلَا يُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا, that they worship Him alone and they don't associate any partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, and with the parents that want us to be dutiful, obedient to one's parents. وذكر الله تعالى بر الوالدين والإحسان إليهما بعد الأمر بالتوحيد يدل على عظمة الشأن بر الوالدين. The fact that Allah SWT has mentioned obedience to one's parents after the command of Tawheed shows the significance of dutifulness to one's parents. That Allah mentions it immediately after His right. لأن الله تعالى هو الخالق. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator. والله تعالى جعل أبويك سببين لوجودك. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made both parents a means for your existence. Salamatullah, kayfak? La ba'as. فالله تعالى أمر بالإحسان إليهما ليس في هذه السورة فحسب بل في الآيات والأحاديث كثيرة. Allah hasn't only mentioned the importance of being dutiful to one's parents in this ayah only, but rather in many ayat and ahadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we find the command of being dutiful to one's parents. كما جاء عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن رضا الرب في رضا الوالدين وسخط الرب في سخط الوالدين. The pleasure of your Lord is in the pleasure of your parents, and the anger of your Lord is in the anger of your parents. وهذا في المعروف، لكن إذا غضبوا عنك في معصية الله Allah يرضى عنك. If they are angry with you because you are avoiding disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they command you to disobey Allah, Allah is pleased with you. ولكن مع عدم امتثال بأمرهما, in light of not fulfilling those commands of ma'siyah, of disobedience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَصَاحِبَهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا, that you accompany them in their worldly life upon goodness. So even when you don't obey your parents in sin, in disobedience, it still has to be done in the best way, with the best mannerisms. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى أي أولي الرحم. This is referring to those who have ties of kinship. Those who are from your ties of kinship, then again you are required to be dutiful and obedient and a good doer towards them. كما جاء في الحديث أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الصدقة على المسكين صدقة. And giving charity to the one who is poor and needy is charity. وعلى ذي الرحم صدقة وصلة. But when it's upon those who are from your ties of kinship, then it's not only is it charity, but it's also of the ways that you can maintain good relationships with them. That you give charity to the poor and needy of your relatives, of your family. هذا من الصدقة. فهذا مطلوب. This is something that is desired for a person to extend that goodness. So when you give charity to someone who's poor, you get the reward of being charitable. But when you give charity to a poor family member, then you also get the reward of the ways of silat al-rahim. Because they will be happy with this. It's of the things that tajlibul qulub, it brings the hearts closer. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى. Now it mentions the orphans and in those who are poor and in need. وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, and the neighbors who are from your family. They are your relatives. وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ, يعني بعيد عنك في الجوار والنسب. Of the thing that is mentioned, وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, this is the one, the relative, the neighbor that is from your relatives. And also the neighbor that is near to you. And وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ, this is the one بعيد عنك في الجوار والنسب, the one that is not so close to you and also not from your family. وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. الصاحب بالجنب, هذا الزوجة. This is regarding the wife or the husband that wants to be good to their spouses. وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, the one who is traveling has lost their way on their journey. Doesn't have enough provisions to complete their journey. هذا ابن السبيل. المنقطع في سفره, the one who is not able to complete their journey. وَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ مِنَ الْأَرِقَّى, and those that your right hand possesses from the slaves, that you are still, it's an obligation to be good to them. And that's why this is again evident of the hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ الْإِحْسَانَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ أو في كل شيء. That Allah has ordained goodness in all of our affairs. That whatever you do, you have to do it in the best way. And Allah mentioned, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ مَنْ كَانَ مُخْتَالًا فَخُورًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love those who are arrogant and boastful. And المتكبر, مختالا متكبرا, the one who is arrogant, thinks they're better than others. فخورا على الناس بما أوتي, the one who boasts over the people with that which Allah has favored them with. These are the characteristics that are not pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وجاء في الحديث إياك وإسبال الإزار فإن إسبال الإزار من المخيلة والله لا يحب المخيلة. Mention, woe and caution to you regarding allowing your garment to go below your ankles. As allowing the garment to go below the ankles is from arrogance. And Allah does not love arrogance. فهذا حديث جاء فيه النهي عن الإسبال وأنه من الكبر ومخيلة, a prohibition against isbal, allowing your garments to go below your ankles, and that is from arrogance. But also this hadith has come, or the prohibition of this has come without mentioning anything to do with arrogance. So you say in general, and this is something that is manhiyun an. There is something that is is prohibited. Rather, despite how light people take this affair, is min al-kaba'ir al-dhunub. It's from the major sins. No.
Is that for women as well?
La, for men. Women, their garment should go beyond their ankles to like a handspan, not too much that is dragging along the floor for long, but the length of a handspan. No. So, in another hadith, ثَلَاثَةٌ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهِمُ اللَّهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, the three that will not be looked at or spoken to on the day of judgment. From them, al-musbil, the one who allows the garment to go below the ankles. So one is not to take this lightly. And it's not even pleasing to the eye. When you see a man wearing a thobe, for example, and it's all the way down to the floor, it makes you feel like there's no manhood there. It's like tashabbuh bin nisa. You feel like this. That person's imitating the women. Especially now, some places, Allah musta'an, the thobe is tight. Tight and straight to the floor. You don't even see their shoes. And you're like, أين الرجولة في هذا? Where's the manhood in this? Musbil now. كيف يجري? How can they run? كيف يدافع عن نفسه? How can they protect themselves or their family if a situation arises? Allah musta'an. Literally looks like they're wearing a sleeping bag. But again, people take these things lightly. May Allah protect us and keep us firm upon the sunnah. Ameen. So within this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He refers to rights. The greatest of rights is the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the rights of one's parents. And then the rights of your relatives, your ties of kinship. Then those who are orphans. And those who are poor and needy. Those who have lost their way on a journey. If you're able to help for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But those who have sincere situations. Because some people unfortunately take advantage. Knowing that sadaqah is of the most encouraged acts of worship for the Muslim. Some people take advantage of this, knowing that the Muslims will be giving. And they may lie and be deceitful of their cases and their situations. Wallahu musta'an. But a person observes the situation. If you think this person is sincere, and you give charity for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they're lying, this will not decrease from your reward. That will be upon them. You see. But as we know, in circumstances how we live, where we're able to read certain situations based on experience. Now, also the neighbors have rights upon us. كما جاء في الحديث من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم جاره. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day, then let them honor their neighbor. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us that he was advised so much regarding a neighbor, he thought that the neighbor would inherit from him. Showing the importance of being dutiful and respectful, and in kaff al-adha, withholding harm, min al-jar, from the neighbor. وَكَذَلِكَ جَاءَ فِي السُّنَّةِ. It also came in the sunnah, if a person was to make soup, then one should look to the affairs of their neighbors. It's not befitting for the Muslim to sleep with a full stomach knowing his neighbor is hungry and he hasn't shared food with his neighbor. هذا لا يجوز للمسلم أبدا. This is not permissible for the Muslim. Al-Muslim muslih. The Muslim is someone who rectifies matters, rectifies affairs, brings about reconciliation for the sake of who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا يفسد في الأرض. They don't cause fasad, corruption, and widespread evil. لا. فالمسلم إذا عرف حال الجار مسكين فقير. The Muslim knows the situation of the neighbor being poor and in need. فيسعى في مساعدته. They hasten towards aiding them. وفي ذلك دعوة إلى الله. in those actions is also a way of calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لعله يفتح قلب الجار إذا كان كافر إذا كان مسلم فهو أولى بالحق. If they're not Muslim, it may open their heart to Islam. Maybe a means of them coming to Islam. When you tell them, look, I know of your situation, no one knows that this is between me and you, I want to help you. Or if you're hungry, you got a meal at my house, don't be shy. All these kind of things. If you ever in need, let me know. You don't understand the effect that has on a person. And unfortunately today, when in the West, we live in societies where people have too much pride. We're in a time now, when I was young, there used to be songs for those who used to shop in Lidl. Remember? Man used to have songs, like rapping songs about man that shopped in Lidl. If you got caught with that Lidl bag, whoa. Listen, man was going Lidl with a JD bag. Back in the days, you couldn't publicly go Lidl. Unless you had that character, you don't care what man has to say, or people are not going to say nothing anyway. But if you wasn't that person, you'll catch a school bus joke. But now everyone's shopping there. Everyone's looking for the cheapest alternative from these high-end superstores. Why? Because everyone understands the financial situation, generally speaking, is not good right now. It's very difficult. The cost of living has gone above the roof. It's expensive. So you have to let go of that pride. Obviously, you have to be cautious of the people you accept help from. Because there are some people who, when they help you, they remind you of their favors. They make it like you're in debt to them. Or they'll tell the community, my man was on his face and I had to help him out. I got him, I sorted him out. I bucked him a little change and that's what? Dishonoring you. Islam prohibited all of this. You only want to know that the person who's helping you is genuine. They care about your affairs. They are looking out for you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Al-Muslim, Akhul Muslim, the Muslim's a brother to another Muslim. If you're hungry, I'm feeling pain for you. I shouldn't be like, that's not my problem. The thing that actually hurts us as Muslims, that when we see poverty in a mass scale, that we're not able to help everyone. That's what hurts. But what gives you that mindset? Islam. La takun anani. You're not anani meaning ana, selfish. Rather, you look at masalih lil jami', you look at the greater good for everyone. But what you don't know the difference a good act will make for someone. Someone was telling me a story that there was a person in a Muslim land. And one day, they helped a child that was in need, poor, needed food. They helped that child. They gave them charity. And this was in Mecca, to be precise. I said 20 years the person left Mecca. He was no longer there. He left, he traveled and came back.
The one that gave.
The one that gave the money. Barakallahu feek. He gave 20 years later, he came back to Mecca. And a man came to him. Now, when I say a man's early 20s, I said, I remember your face. I know you from somewhere. And the guy's like, no, you don't know me kind of thing. He's like, no, I'm sure. did you used to come around here X, Y, and Z years ago? He said, yes. He said, you helped me when I was in need. And subhanAllah, imagine 20 years later, you don't realize the goodness you've done, the effect it had on someone. But that person, you naturally would forget. You won't remember. That person won't forget your face. That person who was in need and was calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they understand Allah sent you as a means. So when you've gone about your business, they're still making dua for you. But for you, you were just like, that was just another person in need. Allah gave me something, I was able to help. But for that person, Allah made you the answer of their dua. So now they make dua for you. And you don't even know. And maybe one day Allah will allow you to see them again. Because sometimes you don't know the impact of your action and what it does for a person. A person might have a bad day. For them, they've lost hope. They thought that either practicing Islam or becoming a Muslim, their life was only going to get better. They didn't understand the concept that no, you will be tested. Allah will test you in many ways. And sometimes the hardship is an actual relief of hardship of the hereafter, but you just don't know it. But maybe you share a kind word, maybe you just spend some time with them and you don't understand the impact it had on their life, that they actually gained hope again. Because even there's some people that are mentally ill or severely poor, begging and stuff. One, I've seen him for years. Only recently I heard him actually talk and have a conversation with him. And I was shocked. I was like, okay, you can actually have a normal conversation. But just from giving him that time and having a normal conversation, he won't walk past me now without saying hello and maybe seeking 1 or 2 minutes of time just to tell you something. But you don't actually realize what that does for someone. Imagine someone has no one to talk to. In life, you always have a friend or something you want to share information with. Something happens in your life, you just want to share it with someone that you know, that you're close to. But imagine having no one you can do that with. But then you might find there's a stranger, but he's a Muslim man. I respect him, I see him. He's a stranger, I don't know him, but I know him. He's a man of the area. And he gives me some time, he asks me how's my day going. You don't understand the impact that has on that person. That maybe they said, you know what? Despite the hardship I'm going through in my life, I don't see money on this person. I just see a normal person who has manners, who has morals, who has principles, and understands how to deal with people. This is Islam. This is of the core foundations of da'wah that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam taught us. When he said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent to complete the best of manners. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in describing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, said, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You are upon the best of manners. That's what people are remembered for. Now look, the UK, the Brits ain't happy. Muhammad became #1 name for boys. They even beat Noah. So they're like, whoa, they're taking over. But if you think about it, the most influential man to walk the face of the earth, the best man to walk the face of the earth, was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Muslims of course, when they have a son, they want to name him after the best of mankind, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So much so, in some countries, you have someone called Muhammad al-Awwal. Muhammad the first, that's the first son. Muhammad al-Thani. Muhammad al-Thani, that's the second Muhammad, that's the second son. So when they call their boys, you know, in the yard house, you know, your name gets called to wash the dishes. Say Muhammadun. All the Muhammads come. All the boys, they're called Muhammad. Why? You think Muslims, we don't just name our children a name without contemplating on why we chose that name for our child. Those who are practicing and upholding Islam, they're going to seek to name their children after role models of Muslims. Either the Sahaba, the Sahabiyat, the companions, the men and the women of them, or the prophets and messengers. Why? So they give their child a name to aspire to be like. And all Muslims want their children to be like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But when you give your child a name, that becomes something that is an ID for them. You can't forget your name. No matter what you do, your name is Muhammad, or your name is Abdullah, or your name is Abdul Rahman. You have a Muslim name. You're either named after the best of mankind, or you're named as a worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the name, it carries weight. It carries meaning. Now, that's why the Muslim, as much as we learn fiqh and aqidah and the Quran, if we don't adorn ourselves with manners, no one will look at us. No one will want to hear a word you have to say if your manners are poor. The moment you see a person, their manners are poor, the moment you turn away from them. The moment someone is rude in their speech, the moment you turn away from them. But when you are pleasant, al-mu'min ya'laf wa yu'laf. And the Prophet taught us is the believer is someone who people like their company. And they're good company, they're good to be around. They're not unpleasant company. They're not a burden. So the Muslim is only going to be like this if they have the best of manners. The better your manners, the more amicable people are going to be with you. The more people are going to be around you. The more people are going to be happy when they see you. Because when they see you, what do they think about? They only think about goodness. They're going to smile. They might have been sad, but they're going to walk away and feel a little bit better just having a moment with you. That's it. That should be the way of the Muslim. And the beauty of Islam, when we give each other our rights and the likes, you might not see your brother for years. But it's not like, you don't contact me. You're always going to be happy to see them. The moment we say Assalamu alaikum, it's entering happiness and joy in the heart of the believer. That's my brother. That's my sister. That's Islam. But imagine having character. When people see you, they're like, man. And listen, Assalamu alaikum, I'm gone. Imagine when you come around, people do that. Why? Because the way you are, people don't want to be around you. And it's an important reminder for us because Allah musta'an, you have people that were born into Muslim households trying to imitate the ways of the people who left those ways and came to Islam, and trying to leave off the ways that they were upon before Islam. But then you have those seeking to have those mannerisms, those attitudes, those dress codes of everything that people who came to Islam have left behind. So they're going backwards. And they think this is cool. And they think it's something to embrace. La. And it's actually damaging many Muslim communities. Hence why now you have some communities as Muslims killing and fighting other Muslims. Kayf, how? Why? Because you're imitating ways that are not the ways of the people of Islam. You're imitating character that is not the character of the people of Islam. This is the reality. You know, and this is why it's important to invest in your Islam. Invest in learning Islam. Because learning Islam is not temporary. It's not like going to college and school and university. Once you're done, you do something else. No. Islam, it doesn't ever come to an end. And the knowledge is not possible for any single one of us to comprehend it all. So if you are sincere, you're always going to be learning. That even sometimes you may learn something 10 years later that changes an opinion you've had for 10 years. A fiqh position you had for 10 years. You learn one thing new, it all changes for you. In one day. And that's the beauty of knowledge. But the problem we have with what causes innovation is when people are arrogant or they have pride. They don't want to change. They're stuck in their ways. But that ways that they're stuck upon is not Islamic culture. Or I'm comfortable because I'm used to it. But okay, but maybe it's not permissible what you're comfortable with or what you're used to. So that's a sacrifice you have to make. Not for my sake, advising you, but for the sake of who? Allah, the one who created you. And that's why when we ponder on ayats like this, we learn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given everyone rights. So upon us is to give everyone their due right. But the most important right to be given is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's also the definition of a person's character. If a person is able to give Allah their rights, you will feel some form of comfort that they will give you your rights. For example, someone comes to ask you for a loan. They ask you for money. There's two types of people. You have one who's known to be loud, borrows money from everyone, not known to pay back. And you have someone who's known to always be in the masjid. Always in the masjid for the salah. Doesn't make much noise, doesn't draw attention to themselves. But they're known for righteousness. You only see goodness from them. And they come to ask you for a loan. Who are you going to be more comfortable to give money to? The one who's always in the masjid. The one who's always praying salah. Why? Because there's a level of trust. You feel like this person must fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What if someone doesn't pray? See, how can you preserve any contract if you're not preserving the contract of Islam? The salah. You see, and this is what defines a person, character. Character is the biggest definition of any individual. Because before a person asks you about your prayer, they see you praying. They ask you, how are you as a person though? And there's sometimes you test people. You might go to a restaurant, for example, and see how they deal with someone who is in a position of service. The way they talk to them, the way they address them. Do they say please? Do they say thank you? Common courtesies and manners that may change and differ from place to place, culture to culture. But those are the things that you observe. You see, it's important. And in learning those positive mannerisms and characteristics, we also learn that which Allah is not pleased with. There are manners and characters that Allah hates, such as arrogance, such as jealousy, such as desires that are dispraised. There are certain characteristics that imitate the worst of the creation, Iblis. From them is arrogance and pride. Because when he was commanded to prostrate to Adam, as respect for Adam, what did he say? I'm better than him, I'm not doing that. And we have that today. If, for example, we have, a community, someone's building a masjid, and you've got a team of individuals. You ask someone, can you do this job? Can you take care of the maintenance? Can you be the one who's looking after the cleaning? What, me? Cleaning? Nah, I'm better than that. What do you mean? Who is it for? It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we humble ourselves, as I mentioned in the hadith, man tawadda'a lillahi daraja rafa'a Allahu bihi daraja or biha daraja. Whoever is humbles themselves before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a level, Allah will elevate them a level for that humility, that humbleness. And when everyone plays their role, we have cohesion, things work. But when someone thinks they're better, as Iblis, he refused to obey the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 1, arrogance. 2, jealousy. And 3, al-hirs, those evil desires that a person has. And he blamed Allah for his sin. He didn't seek forgiveness. This is arrogance. Because a person who's arrogant does not take responsibility for their actions. They always blame someone else. It's never our fault. It's always someone else's fault. That's what Iblis did. He said, it's your fault. That's what he said to Allah. You misguided me. You led me to do this. Adam alayhi salam, what did he do? Taba ilallah. He made tawbah. Sought Allah's forgiveness. Had regret for his sin. As for Iblis, la. Allah, you sent me astray. And then he asked Allah to stay until Yawm al-Qiyamah to send as much people astray as possible. Mada arada Iblis? What does he want? Al-Fasad. He wants a widespread evil and corruption. So the Muslim can't imitate these characteristics. Abadan. And from that, when you ponder in the Quran, there are rights that Allah has legislated for particular individuals. Whether it's your parents, whether it's your neighbors, whether it's your relatives. A person should give everyone their due right. If people don't give you your right, تطالبه من الله تعالى. If people are not giving you your right, then seek your right from Allah Azza wa Jal. Don't busy yourself with the people. The people, they expect me to do this, but they don't want to do this for me. Do your obligation. So when you stand before Allah, you say, I did what I had to do. They didn't give me my right, but I made sure I did what Allah ordained upon me. So anta bari'ta dhimmatak. You're the one who has freed yourself from your responsibilities. But don't do this tick for tack thing. You're not doing this, so I'm not doing this. So you have women doing today with children saying, you're not paying me maintenance, you're not seeing your child. Okay, that's a separate thing. Paying maintenance, that's one thing. But the relationship between the father and the son, هذا wajib. This is an obligation, suratun rahim. Unless there's a legitimate reason as to why they shouldn't have it. As there's fear for the child's safety or something like this. That's not the case. That does not justify you from withholding the child from having a relationship with the father. But it happens too much times on a tick for tack. You're not doing this for me, I'm not doing this for you. La. The Muslim, al-mu'min, kamil al-iman, a'ti kulli dhi haqqin haqqa. Give everyone who has a right of you their due right. And whatever is owed to you, if it's not given to you from the people, then seek it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ونكتفي بهذا. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا وحبيب محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.